The first step is the most crucial step to glory, to the top prize, to the championship. Tonight, the first step will be carefully taken at the track Too Tough to Tame, where from the virtual Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina, we welcome you to coverage of the first race of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs and the round of 10, as we bring you coverage right here on MaxSpeedTV. So happy to have you along on a Wednesday night. We're alongside Francisco Bacalhau atop the Darlington Raceway. My name is Kenneth Bueno. We're in for a stellar evening of racing, Francisco, just because this is the first race of the playoffs. 10 drivers were decided 2 weeks ago at the Daytona International Speedway. Now they get to set their focus directly on a championship. And again, as I mentioned at the top, the first step must be taken here.
Absolutely, Kenneth, and it is the first race of the playoffs. This is definitely a chance for somebody to make their mark, sort of try and insert themselves into the championship talk, because now the points are reset. Just a couple of handful of points between winning races and where you were in the regular season is what separates these guys. Otherwise, it is nip and tuck to begin it. And what a better place to start than Darlington, Kenneth. It's going to be our only trip here this season after we were supposed to unload here back earlier in September, but due to one of iRacing's season builds, unfortunately was a little bit of glitches that we were dealing with and resulted in us not being able to race that week. But we are here nonetheless to open up the playoffs. A very difficult racetrack, an old surface, a lot of wall proximity that takes into effect with these cars getting real loose on that outside line. And I think it's gonna be an interesting one here. I haven't covered too many races from Darlington, but if there's anything I can say is that it's going to be very difficult for everyone in this field.
That's why they call it the track Too Tough to Tame, Darlington Raceway. So much history in stock car racing, opened all the way back in 1950s. We take a look overhead at our track map with images courtesy of our friends at Google Earth. This is a very unique racetrack, apart from a lot of the other racetracks we visit on the schedule. And overall, it's a 1.366 mile, 2.198 kilometer oval, but it has a very different shape than a lot of other ovals we usually visit. It's a tighter radius around one part of the track, a larger radius around the other side of the track. It's 25 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2, going to carry a lot of momentum through there, and through turns 3 and 4 you'll find only 23 degrees of banking, a sort of the tighter part of the racetrack. This is a very interesting venue, and it lays itself to some fantastic racing and really puts it down to driver skill, Francisco, which is going to be important when it comes down to the playoffs. Here's a look at your full point standings from 1st to 10th. Those are all the drivers competing for a 4-wide cup title tonight, and the points are rather thin. At a driver's track, it's going to separate the drivers who are willing to go for that title and drivers who may not be good enough.
And of course, as we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, Kenneth, before our break, one of the notable names you don't see on this list is, of course, the 78 of Brian M. Smith, who announced that he was not going to be able to make most of the playoff races, so he decided to hand off his playoff position to the next available person, meaning he is not going to be one of these 10 drivers. And that really does open up that championship position, Kenneth, because we know that as the season had gone on, he was really starting to get that momentum going, and he was taking the fight right to Colin Forster. So you take him out of the equation, and now it's up to who can stand up to Colin Forster, at least on the win count, because even though Colin Forster was able to get that win just a handful of weeks ago at Rockingham, it's going to come down to who can actually step up in the playoffs, because it's almost like a second portion of the season has started now, a fresh beginning, a fresh start as far as points are concerned, and you can start writing your own destiny. As you see here, the schedule, obviously it says Bristol, but we are here at Darlington as we were supposed to be back on September 8th. Texas is going to be next week under the lights there as well. Nashville Super Speedway, that's the first race you and I will cover from that racetrack, Kenneth, since it's released earlier in the year. And of course, that cutoff race at Talladega. Anything can happen, anything can go wrong, and that will lead to our championship 5 at the Atlanta Motor Speedway on the last week of the year. And I think it's going to be a very fitting way to end off what has been a great 2021 year.
2021 full of surprises, full of great racing, and we'll be ready to crown a champion at the end of it all. But drivers are sat on the front straightaway behind the iRacing official pace car, which means it is our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight from the Lady in Black, the Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina. On pole will be Brian M. Smith. Of course, forfeited his playoff spot because he's not going to be able to make many of the playoff races this season, but he is here tonight. Says the fastest time at 28.661 to line at the front row with Colin Forster, playoff driver who has the most wins overall by any individual driver. He'll line up that outside of the first row to the green flag. Austin Reedy will sit third. Tristan Bailey will head for fourth in row number 2 before you find AJ Green in fifth. Lawson Peel back to 6th place in the 12 machine. Craig Lautenslager will start in P7 with league owner Tyler Murray, the 8 machine, back in P8. And finalizing the top 10 will be the 88 of Brandon T. Banks and the 22 of Eric Schaefer.
Adam Alishire is going to be in that 11th position alongside Jovi Ray in the 12th position. That's your 6th row of the grid. Kyle Benson, who is going to be trying to make the best of his situation. He's going to be in the 13th position with Curtis Kelly in the 14th position. And looking behind them in the 8th row, we have CJ Munier, who just missed out on the playoffs, needing to win at Daytona, and Tyler Warner, who was able to actually get through just by starting the race. We see Michael Newbraw, he's here as well. Christopher Bishop, he's here as well, trying to see if they can pick up some wins. And the rest of your field has not set a lap time. I believe that's actually the rest of our grid. So we don't have exactly the largest of fields as we were probably accustomed in the last couple of weeks, Kenneth, but still a great turnout for what should be a long night.
It's 18 drivers to set for 147 laps. This was the scheduled distance. We're supposed to run at Darlington when we were aimed to race it back in September in the regular season. But of course, due to iRacing build mishaps and hosting sessions and league sessions at best, I decided to move it over to later in the year. This was supposed to be Bristol Motor Speedway. This was aimed to be the doubleheader, along with the ARCA Racing Series last night, which you saw a very fantastic run of the finish. Joe Sanchez got the last lap pass over Lawson Peel. And tonight we're going to see a completely different dynamic here at the track. Too tough to tame. Let's take a look at the weather just before we get started here from Darlington. It's an 85-degree day here in Darlington, South Carolina in sim, but it's a rather cool 87 degrees on the track. Winds to the west, 12 miles per hour. It's a beautiful sunset evening here in sim to go green flag racing for the playoffs. Brian M. Smith, Colin Forster, your first row. The 2 Chevrolets lead us to the green flag. The round of 10, the playoffs are underway.
And you see actually further back, there's trouble behind towards the back end of the top 10. Someone got into the wall as they were going under the acceleration phase. And you can see as this group comes by here, look at that big gap behind.
Already a decent pack up in the front. That's about 6 cars strong there. But Brian M. Smith able to lead the field back to turn 3 cleanly on the outside lane. And off turn 4, the 78 Chevrolet will be clean to complete the first lap of this 147 lapper from Darlington. You see again just how clean everybody is through the top 6. 7th on back, starting with Brandon T. Banks, having a little bit of trouble getting up to speed. Nonetheless, everybody wanting to stay single file. Nobody wants to make any specific moves. And over the course of the night, you're going to see different colors over these cars. You see the blue banners there on the windshield, the blue spoilers, the blue splitters. That is to identify the playoff drivers in this series. Of course, in the ARCA Racing Series last night, you saw orange banners for all those guys. It's going to be blue this time around for the Cup schedule, so you know which drivers are fighting for a 4-wide Cup Series title. Colin Forster being one of them going into this race, the highest winner out of anybody in the field in the campaign. So far, the rookie up in second. Brian M. Smith, though, pulls away to about half a second of a lead.
Brian M. Smith, as we mentioned at the top of the show and mentioned a couple weeks ago, not in the playoffs, decided to give up that spot. He's here tonight at the very least. He still wants to at least win some races when he can. Doesn't want to cost anybody a playoff spot when he knows he won't be a factor in his mind. But right here, you see right now, early on in this one, what is going to be the keys to this race. You see everybody in turns 1 and 2 getting up right next to that wall. And as this run goes on, the tires will just wear more, and it'll be increasingly difficult to run up next to that wall. They make it look easy, Kenneth, but that thing is sliding around there. As you see, actually, your leader brushed the wall of turn 4, and though you might see that a number of times here tonight, that shouldn't exactly hurt the car too much. That's just giving it the good old Darlington strike.
You talked about drivers getting slick, and AJ Green, Tristan Bailey had a wild ride kicking out the rear ends off turn 4. We're going to be seeing that a lot over the course of this race, and even then some. When we start to get long green flag runs in, you're going to believe that drivers are going to be all over the place trying to find as much grip as possible. Not many battles throughout the field. Of course, everybody's still single file. Haven't seen too many side-by-side action between drivers, but then again, it is early in the race, so you're going to expect some drivers to keep it cool. Here is Curtis Kelly underneath playoff driver Kyle Benson. This is the path so far to enter the top 10 P9. Kyle Benson, a playoff driver in this season, looking for redemption after what was heartbreak at Charlotte Motor Speedway the last campaign where he made the championship 5. And already probably some negative news here for Kyle Benson, Francisco. He's got a tap on the wall. He's got a Darlington stripe, but that's a decent crinkle on the right front.
Yeah, and you can tell right there just where that hood flap is, you can really see just how far bent that is, and that's not exactly going to help him. At least in the short term, it's not going to make too much of a difference, but that is going to wear that right front tire a little bit because the arrow's messed up, and of course, it affects the handling of the race car. So right now, as you see the sunlight very much out at this point in the racetrack, if that damage doesn't get fixed by the time the lights are out, you can definitely imagine that it's going to be a long night for him, especially right now because we don't have that many cars here, which is definitely different to what we've seen in the last couple of races. But seeing the separation we already have, Kenneth, that is definitely going to be inducing to some long runs.
That's the same deal we saw at Bristol. We had one of our longest runs ever in the series in the ARCA race at Bristol last night, where we had a total of pretty much more than 50 laps under green flag circumstances, and it appeared as if we were going to head for green flag pit stops, but there were some cautions near the middle of the event that kind of spruced that up and changed the game entirely. But at Darlington, you're going to mostly see a lot of drivers string out, and that's going to really play to sort of the difference in skill that these drivers have. Of course, there's low downforce with these cars. You have a lot more power underneath the hood. This is the 750 horsepower package that NASCAR does use on tracks like Darlington and on the short tracks on the road courses. So you're not dealing with sort of the aerodynamic heavy race cars that are usually accustomed to seeing over at Kansas, over at Homestead, over at the larger ovals that we usually see on the schedule. But because you have a lot more power, because you have pretty much little to no downforce, that's going to really put it in the hands of the driver, and really going to be all about how you can save your tires, save your equipment, and most importantly, still stay fast. Here's the 13 of Craig Launslager underneath the number 2 machine of Tristan Bailey. Some notable colors here, as this will be throwback week. 13 rocking some Jeff Byrne colors from the 90s, early 2000s. Launslager not going to be able to make that pass complete for 5th, but tried to take his nose in there off of 1 and 2 and almost had it. Got to reset for the next lap. So of note, everybody's still mostly strung out single file, although just outside the top 10, it is looking a bit hairy. This is Adam Alashire in the number 4, the Unibet Ford Mustang, just behind rookie Lawson Peel, who was close to victory last night at the Bristol Motor Speedway. Tapped the outside wall with 2 laps to go, but still a solid tire call near the end for the 12, who already has a short track win in the Cup Series at Richmond not too long ago. But Adam Alashire looking for something a lot larger. Remember, he is, look at the banners there as he strikes the outside wall on 1 and 2, part of the playoffs. So he is running for the title. He was a winner earlier this season at the Daytona International Speedway. So Alashire for Stock Motorsports looking to give the rookie team their very first title. Although, much like many drivers, he's got damage on the right front all the way on that right side. Darlington stripe really hitting some drivers early.
And that's going to be the tough part about the night, because you're going to get it, but you don't want to get it this early into the race because, as you mentioned, the race is 147 laps, and you have to try and make the car last about that long, so you don't want to jeopardize the car. We do have fast repairs. We do have one for everybody in this field, but you don't want to have to rely on that, really. The less you have to rely on a fast repair, usually the better off you'll be. And we see right there, Alashire actually gets it again, and this time he'll lose the spot to Murray, and we're going to see this happening a whole lot here tonight, Kenneth. We're going to see guys struggle on the long run to keep it out of the outside wall. And those guys who are patient and don't hit the outside wall, they should be better off just by keeping their car clean.
Interesting here with Tyler Murray. He is 17th on the racetrack, but he is 2 laps down. He is one of 2 drivers so far in the race as of lap 14 to be 1 or more laps down. Eric Schaefer was 5 laps down. He is currently 5 laps down actually on the racetrack, and Tyler Murray has used his fast repairs. So I believe the early issues that you pointed out, Francisco, on the opening lap of the race may have been from the Big Fast Racing number 8, a driver who is running for the playoffs, running for a championship, was a member of the Championship 5 in the last campaign at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. But early troubles here for the driver of the 8 as he gets by Lawson Peel and attempts to somewhat gain some track position and be able to at least put himself one lap down, maybe potentially slot himself into the lucky dog spot should we get a yellow flag at some point in this race. But for the driver of the 8, the league owner is going to have a tall task to get back to the lead lap and try to compete with these points. And going into tonight, Francisco, I mean, look at the playoff grid, just how thin the point spread is. And in the ARCA series, it's a lot wider. You see about 5 to 6 points between some drivers going into that first race in the playoffs at Bristol. But tonight, all the drivers below the cut line are only 1 point behind 5th place. So that means that any moves, whether it's for position in the top 10, position for the lead, position anywhere, 1 point, it's going to matter the most to create tiebreakers, create ties between drivers, and of course, have a thinner margin of error for a lot of the competitors here tonight that are running for the title. They do not want to make mistakes early because it could cost them dearly.
And one of the things I am noticing here as you look at Colin Forster is you see where he's running on the straightaway. He does not want to get near that outside wall if he can. You see he kind of gets off of it a little bit, doesn't want to risk getting too close to it, and drifts up towards it on the entry just to get the arc. Gets right on the apron. You see right here, doesn't exactly go as close as Brian M. Smith, just uses as much wall proximity as he has to. You see right there, he actually gained a little bit of time on your race leader. You see right there, he's about half a car lane off the wall, really trying to take it conservative, but right now he is gaining a little bit of time because maybe, just maybe, by doing that he's saving just a little bit of tires and a little bit at a time. You see Smith just continues to kick out that right rear, so he's not saving those rear tires at the very least. But if this continues for a couple laps, that little bit of a difference starts to be a big difference, and that's when we might see Colin Forster start to pounce on your leader.
And Forster's already pouncing in terms of lap time. When they crossed the line and out of turn 4 where Smith got really loose up in front of the field, he set a 30.836. Forster was almost a full 0.2 faster, 30.689 when they crossed the start-finish line for lap 19 to begin lap 19 as they come across from turn 4. Now going to complete lap number 19, edge for lap 20. So Colin Forster is indeed starting to catch the race leader. You got to figure for Brian M. Smith, he's already starting to feel the pressure a little bit. A driver that usually is skillful at a lot of venues dynamically. I mean, we've seen him win at the road courses. We've seen him do well at the intermediates. He's done pretty well at the super speedways, the shorter tracks. He's been pretty much everywhere, and he's contentious everywhere. But it's as though with nothing to lose, he's pushing that car a little bit early in this race over the first 20. That's allowed the 99 of Colin Forster, rocking the Daniel Suarez throwback from 2021. Already creeping in that last time by, once again, close to a full 10th faster than your leader.
Yeah, and right there, you see actually he closed a lot there through turn 1, and but kind of stays a little bit higher off too. The advantage he has right now is he's not exactly putting a lot of energy through his rear tires, at least compared to the 78 of Smith. As you see almost every other corner, he kind of gets loose. Right there, he had to really check with the car, otherwise he would have gotten in the wall. But right there, turns a little bit further down the track, and it straightens up his exit a little bit more. And you see he actually gets a good run, but the problem is you're not going to really be able to make a move on this part of the racetrack. It's just a one-lane racetrack. We saw a move attempted to be made here a couple of years back, if you remember, Kenneth. Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott in the first race of the playoffs here at Darlington, and that did not end well for either driver. Kevin Harvick was able to go by both of those damaged race cars and take the win. I don't think either of these guys will do that on lap 22 as Smith gets into the wall, and it looks as though he's gone.
Appears he's called it quits early, so that indeed will hand the lead over to playoff driver Colin Forster. Very odd circumstance there for Brian M. Smith. Felt like maybe he was using too much of his car too early. And now he is gone, so that will move Forster up to the race lead. That puts Austin Reedy for Big Fast Racing, the Murray Reedy Motorsports number 11 Chevrolet Camaro, up to P2. AJ Green will follow soon in the podium as he's trying to fend off a pouncing Craig Lounslogger. And Lounslogger, definitely a very interesting case here, Francisco, because at this point he's not in the playoffs, he's not running for a championship. He was last season, but he's in a very different spot this time around. That means since he doesn't have the blue banners all over the race car, that means he can run as aggressively as he wants, as hard as he wants to, and can just try and go for race wins as much as possible. And the 13, last time we visited Darlington, not in the Cup Series but in the ARCA Series, Lounslogger finished in second. He was charging Joe Sanchez, race leader at the time. He was not able to take that position away in the final laps, but Lounslogger is very quick at these driver skill tracks as AJ Green gets way loose off of 4. That'll open the door here on the outside for Lounslogger. And Lounslogger already early, moving up to the top 3 and carrying over the experience from the ARCA race earlier this year.
that goes back to what we were talking about, Kenneth, is just how the mistakes are being made. Right there, Green made one off 4, got really loose, and the third team was able to take advantage of it. And sometimes by just having a clean race car, you can really take advantage of the situation and improve your own. We know that he's not in the playoffs, so he's just here to win the race, and neither is Austin Reedy. Austin Reedy also missed the playoffs. So right now, second and third are consisting of non-playoff drivers. You see a look there at Tyler Murray with a similar incident there in turn 4, just really getting it loose, able to keep it under him. And that just goes to show, Kenneth, we're 26 laps into this run, and I believe our fuel window for tonight should be somewhere in that 55 lap area here at Darlington. And just almost halfway through this fuel run, and you can see these guys are really struggling, and the pace has dropped off by at least about a second and a half, almost 2 seconds since the start of our run. So the tires are worn. They're a lot slower, but that doesn't make it any more easy for these guys. They're still having to wheel in.
And you can also look at just how sunny the racetrack is based on the light alone. There's the sun coming out of turn 2. A bit of a glare there coming back to turn 3 on the back straightaway. But if you can tell, pretty much most of the track is beamed on by the sun. Apart from this part right here, turn 3 and 4, it's probably the cooler part of the racetrack. But especially in 1 and 2, you're going to see a lot of drivers get slick, as Austin Reedy almost loses the race car there off of the 4th corner. But it gets very slick around the lip parts of the racetrack just because it's a lot harder in those areas, and coupled with the fact that the tires are indeed wearing out with this much power underneath the hood for many of these cars. And then you obviously start to think just how bad of an idea it is to mix those two together, and you're going to have a recipe for disaster behind the wheel when it comes to trying to really manhandle your race car in every single corner here from Darlington. Make sure that your car is as pristine as possible. With that mistake, though, Reedy did lose a lot of time to Craig Lownslugger, so Lownslugger only continues to move up through the ranks. And he can go as far up as second, maybe catch in from your race leader. Although Colin Forrester, after the mistake from Brian M. Smith, after he dropped out of the session, Colin Forrester has pulled away by 1.7 seconds over Austin Reedy. And it doesn't look like he's looking back.
He's not looking back, but what he's looking in front of him is also some potential lap traffic, Kenneth, if we can get it on board. Look, you see right there, about 2 seconds in front of him, that is the first piece of lap traffic that he'll be encountering tonight. As we mentioned a couple of laps ago, a smaller field than what we're used to, a lot of spread out action, and it looks to be the 71 of Curtis Kelly. With this field spread that we got here and the lower car count, that should mean that we'll have a lot more green flag laps, and in doing so, that means we'll definitely encounter some lap traffic, because these guys just have a different way about going around this racetrack. Some are naturally able to go quicker because they have more confidence, or they just feel better around driving this racetrack than others. Others are just trying to complete laps, and those different agendas result in these different lap times. And right here is an example of it. You see right there, Kelly's going to go to the inside and attempt to run that inside, just trying to keep the car clean, and I believe he'll let your race leader go. He's staying to the high side, so Forrester should have a rather easy time getting around that 71. He'll slide back up to the top, and he'll continue going on. And the rest of the field is going to have to do this as well. It's not just Colin Forrester who has to get by lap traffic. Every person in this race is going to have to get through lap traffic. And we haven't really seen lap traffic in most races this season, Kenneth, whether it's at a short track or a big track. Only rarely we encountered lap traffic in races this season. One of the main ones you could probably think of are tracks like Richmond, when we had a long run there, or Homestead when we had just the one caution. There's been, and even the road courses have had lap traffic just because there is no cautions. So outside of those instances, we haven't really seen lap traffic be much of a problem, and it feels like this is what we get here on out. Traffic could be a bigger problem than what we've seen to this point.
Could very well be a factor here as we close in on the fuel window, where drivers, if we stay green, are going to have to come down pit road for service and be able to continue on their way in terms of fuel. Curtis Kelly just packs the outside wall there out of turn 2, but Kelly going to go one lap down. He's going to be now 3 cars under 1 lap that are still on the racetrack. That includes, of course, Curtis Kelly, who just got lapped, Tyler Murray, who's still 2 laps down on the track trying to regain a lap, and Eric Schaefer, who currently sits 16th, 5 laps down. 17th place Brian M. Smith, 18th place Tristan Bailey are officially out of this race, so they are both 11 laps down and 14 laps down respectively. So Colin Forrester is going to have some sparsity when it comes to lap traffic, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and then he's still going to have to adapt around those cars, especially when he gets closer up to the field if possible. and drivers are going to be more aggressive to keep themselves on the lead lap instead of just conceding to the leader and letting him by. Earlier on, you saw the pass for second be complete. That was Craig Lounsloger, who got by a fading Austin Riddy in the 11. So again, that 13 just continues to make his way up through the field. And the Citgo Toyota Camry already on good spirits in the first 35 laps of this race, as he's now going to tackle the first batch of lap traffic here. This is going to be Curtis Kelly on the back straightaway. Clear over to turn 3, and much like Colin Forster, Lounsloger is going to be able to clear without any sort of trouble. So not much really to talk about too much in terms of on-track action, Francisco, but if we're going to be delving into sort of this long-run strategy, we're going to start obviously talking about pit entry. That's one of the biggest challenges here from the Darlington Raceway, and we've talked about this multiple times, touched on it at many different tracks across the service and the calendar, that when you're going so fast, when you have a very wild pit entry, it's going to be very challenging for drivers behind the wheel to hold on to their cars, stomp on the brakes effectively, and not lose as much time going down pit road. Here at Darlington, you have a very wide apron. You have a very interesting entrance into pit road. You have to really turn way left to get down there. So while Colin Forster dives through lap traffic and everybody else tries to get themselves clear, when they head for pit road, under green flag circumstances, they're going to have to really make sure that they've got the handle, or else they either speed, they either hit a wall, or they go out.
Yeah, and that's easier to actually happen than it is to say, really, because that's just so difficult to get into pit road here at Darlington. Darlington and Dover, those two racetracks in particular, Kenneth, they have two of the most difficult pit road entries in the entire of NASCAR racetracks, if you ask me. And of course, Darlington, you mentioned you have to really turn the car left just to make sure you get the entry. And I wasn't covering this particular race when it happened, but I was a spectator to the broadcast that you were doing with Charlie in the Bungeon Lawn Care series here just a couple of, almost a year ago, really. And it was your top two cars in that race, Blaze McKinney, Parker White. They were going around here. They were getting ready for their pit road entry. And I believe Parker White hit the pit barrels and was stuck there, was forced to tow, and Blaze McKinney would end up speeding on pit road. That handed the win to Brody Gardner, as he didn't make a mistake on those final green flag pit stops. But of course, guys don't want to be doing that kind of stuff if they want to have a chance to win today. And as we mentioned, it is a lot easier to happen than you think, because you go into turn 3 and you try to brake where you normally would, because it's so late into the corner. You think, I got this. And as you make the left right there on that Darlington text, soon enough that pit road entry really tightens up, and you can easily end up hitting those pit brawls. We saw almost numerous times Denny Hamlin hit that. He almost did once, but he actually chose to exit pit road, didn't even get a penalty for going inside the cone or whatever that sort. And actually that choice, in order to miss pit road, won him the race. So don't want to do that, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world.
And especially given the fact that these cars have already used up the tires wildly through the first 40 laps, it's only going to get tighter at that radius. When you're turning the car so much left, trying to carry so much speed, that car is just going to start to push. It's not going to start to really oversteer. It's not going to start to point you into the direction. It's just going to start to push outwards. So either you hit that pit barrel, you hit the pit road attenuator, or best case scenario, but still possibly worst case scenario, you miss pit road and you lose a heap of time. And that's what a lot of drivers don't want to do here on the track. As Brandon Banks, he's stepped into the top 5 for the first time here tonight. He's a playoff driver, winner at Michigan as a non-eligible playoff driver last campaign. Has not been able to reach victory lane this time around, but has been consistent enough to put himself into the top 10 as he slams the outside wall just barely. That's going to open the door potentially here for fellow playoff competitor Kyle Benson to step into the top 5. And Benson, although he's got some of that right side damage, it hasn't hampered him too harshly as he almost gets in the wall there off of turn 2. He's still been able to work his way through the field and still remain rather consistent. I guess it's not the case that he's made mistakes, but that everybody else has also made mistakes, as the caution flag waves for the first time tonight.
Yellow flag, and it looks to happen right there on the front straightaway. It looks like Adam Alshire involved one of your playoff drivers. Not exactly sure what may have happened. He was running in the top 10 prior to his spin. We'll see if we can get a look, and I feel that most likely it was a result of just losing it off of turn 4. We've seen several guys really get loose off turn 4. He gets into the wall. We've seen him numerous times get into the wall, just doesn't come off of it, and then right there the car just hooks. Should be 4 tires and fuel. I don't expect anything different from here. And then you see Forrester exiting pit road, all good. The 13 of Lonslugger able to come away in second. All good, no problems there. You see the battle for third. AJ Green and Brandon T. Banks battling for that one. It looks like Reedy's going to hold in his stall. Some of these guys, remember, did get the outside wall several times, so taking advantage of the rather short field, but also the light amount of cars on the lead lap in order to fix some damage, counting on the fact that they won't lose a drastic amount of track position. So that's probably what these guys are doing. They're just sitting there, fixing some of their damage, knowing that they won't lose a tremendous amount of spots. I think now is probably the best time to do so, considering it's the first caution of the race. You still have about 100 laps to go in this race. There's still another pit stop at the very least that has to get done in this race, so not the worst idea. There you see the 8 of Tyler Murray has decided to stay out. He'll try and take the wave around to try and get to 1 lap down. So I want to ask you, Kenneth, what has been your thoughts on these opening 40 or so laps? Have they been what you anticipated them to be?
A full 100 laps of leeway back to the finish. Colin Forster is your race leader at a pit road. He's going to be followed through by Craig Lounslogger. It'll be Brandon Banks, AJ Green to row number 2, the 2 Chevrolets. Behind them, they are both playoff competitors, so they may have a shot here at the 99 Camping World Camaro if they can get there. Back to the top 5 include Kyle Benson, Michael Newbraw, Lawson Peel back to 7th, 8th to Austin Riddy, CJ Munier, and Tyler Warner round out your top 10. So we're ready to go back to green flag racing. Tyler Murray is getting the wave around, so I believe he's going to be 1 lap down this time instead of 2 laps down. He's going to join the likes of Curtis Kelly and Adam Alishire as drivers 1 lap down on the track. And when that caution comes out, if it ever does come out, the second one, they'll be looking for a lucky dog as quickly as they can. Pace car makes the sharp left to pit road. Colin Forrester on discretion here, the leader on the restart lap 47, ready to get underway from Darlington. And the round of 10, first race of the playoffs continues. Colin Forrester clears the field back to turn 1.
And we're going to see this be an interesting topic throughout the night if we get restarts, Kenneth, is exactly where the leader can go. You can go still in the corner, and with the small spoiler, it could really generate some wheel spin. And you see immediately the whole field gets single file. Nobody wants to be side by side going through turn 1. A lot of give and take going on. People just want to get through and get a decent enough run. Forrester with a good restart. How about the 13 of Lonslugger? He was able to get a good restart from 4th, and he has found his way up to 2nd. So far, so good for the 13 of Lonslugger, and right now he is right behind your race leader.
And he is catching there on that 99 machine. Here's a look on board from the 13 Toyota Camry, and of course, he is yet to lead this race, but given the experience that he's had and given how close he was to the race lead in the ARCA race earlier this year, he's definitely got some vengeance to go to victory lane here tonight on the Cup side of things. There he is, creeping up, tries to diamond out the exit of turn 4, and we may have a battle for the race lead in a couple of laps time. Craig Lounslogger, that time, almost a full 10th faster than the race leader.
And don't look now, but AJ Green has caught them in a hurry as well. You see him back there in the 3rd spot. He was about half a second behind them a lap ago, and now he's about 2 car lengths back. And look at Lonslugger. He's looking to the inside, going into turn 3. It's not exactly a favorable spot to really be in. As you see, he kind of backs out of it, drifts up high to try and recollect himself. You want to make a move You have to have an insane amount of forward momentum going into turn 3. You have to probably be at least equal to the car on your outside to stand a chance, because obviously you can't really make a move here in turn 1. So your best chance is to really capitalize off turn 2, get to the inside immediately, and try and slide up going into turn 3. And if you can't, chances are you're going to lose a lot of time, as you see mostly single file through this front portion of the field. Kyle Benson doing a solid enough job trying to get into that top 5 position. And this is the story about Darlington, Kenneth. It's very hard to race the racetrack, and that's probably why we don't see a lot of side-by-side action as well, is because you're busy trying to keep your own car under control, so it makes it a lot more difficult if you're trying to someone else while you're both trying to do exactly that.
That's why they call it the driver's track. Darlington, so unique, but comparative to a lot of the other tracks we visit on the circuit. Lounslugger has simmered down behind the race leader. That's not to say that he may not make a pass here or there if he has the chance, but he is stuck behind the 99 of Forrester. Wants to sort of maybe take notes here, Francisco, I guess you could say. Take notes on the race leader, how he handles his car over the opening run, and then try and pounce on some of the weaknesses. That's also something you can take into account here, Francisco, at a driver's track, because like you said, drivers are more focused on racing the track than they are racing other drivers. So let's say if they're racing the track and they're looking at the driver up in front, they can take notes on how they're racing the track, find weaknesses in their style, find weaknesses in the way they approach the racetrack, and then take advantages from there, gain some time as well. I feel like that's what Lounslugger is trying to do, not forcing the issue here on the leader, just making sure he knows where Forrester stands over the course of a run so that he can maybe make a move once tires start to wear out.
Or you know what they say, you can use the leader as a rabbit. You can run your pace and see how it is relative to the leader and adjust your pace accordingly. Are you trying to get around him in a hurry? If so, then we'd probably see him pouncing. But right now he's obviously not trying to do so. So he's just trying to see what he is doing compared to how he feels he should be doing, and making any necessary adjustments in order to try and either match it or save a little bit of tire, because running a different line or a slightly different input and through a certain corner is really going to be the difference maker as far as saving a little bit of tires here and there, which, as we've discussed through several laps, really starts to accumulate, and that's where you'll get that difference. So right now you see everybody in this top 7 or so single file, no one really able to make a move on each other yet, and that's how it's going to be for these several laps. And until someone really gets into the outside wall, which as we've seen today is won't take too long before someone does eventually, then that'll probably open it up just a little bit more than what it is right now, because right now they are nose to tail like it's a restrictor plate track.
They're nose to tail all the way back to 7th. Austin Reedy is the last car in this sort of de facto racing train up at the front of the field. Of course, Colin Forrester manning the rest of them, and he has cleared Lounslugger by just a bit. So that last time by, he was indeed faster than the 13. And as they cross the start-finish line this time around, it's opposite. He's about a 10th faster than the guy in second place, that 13 in that Toyota Camry. So everybody will start to thin out here, especially if we stay green. But what also will happen is that the sun is going to start to set. Of course, I mentioned the glare back to turn 3. The fact that the sun was pretty much beaming on most of the racetrack apart from 3 and 4. But take a look now at the skies. It's not as bright on the racetrack as it was when we started this race. So as it starts to develop, as the track starts to change, temperature is going to start to change, the day is going to start to change, the sun's going to go down, the moon's going to come up, the lights are already flickered on here from Darlington, so that means track temps are going to start to cool. Maybe a pleading call from the tires are finally answered, but they're still going to get torn up here.
Yeah, one of my favorite things on the iRacing service, Kenneth, and you know this as well, is I love being a part of races that have transitions, you know, that have a race that start early on in the afternoon and finish probably around this time of day, or start at with the late afternoon setting and end completely under the lights, like if it's the Bristol night race. I love that. It adds an extra character to the race, because you have the track changing and you really have to take that into account in order how you drive the track, how you manage the track, which lines you have to run, which line's more effective. So you sum that up in a race, and that really makes it a lot more difficult to adjust as the race goes on, because not only are you only having to worry about tires and somebody you're racing against, but you have to try and get ahead of the track. You have to be prepared to do something different with the track once it's there, because obviously when you start the race, the track temperature is going to be at its hottest, and by the time the race ends, it's going to be at its coolest. So you have to know what is going to change with the racetrack as the race goes on, in order to drive differently according to that, because obviously with these fixed setups, we can't make any adjustments to the car itself. The only adjustments we can make our driving style, and that could really make a big difference in of itself.
That's what separates the best from the rest when it comes to a track like Darlington. As you saw a battle there, Austin Reedy had gained 2 spots since he was sort of the tail end of that little train here. Now he's going to make a pass here, attempted pass to turn 3 on Brandon Banks. This is going to put him into the top 4, respectively, if he's able to make the pass complete. Going to pinch the 88 closer to that wall. And for the big fast 11, he's making moves early on in this run as of lap 60. Already +3 since the drop of the green flag on the restart. And the playoff drivers just behind him, Banks and Benson respectively, have sort of fallen back, and Benson has hit the wall a couple of times. Banks has made some mistakes on his own. That's allowed Austin Reedy to catch up. And these two very different on their perspective sort of paths when it comes to the playoffs, but sort of the same in this series as the 88 almost tags the outside wall there in 3 and 4. Benson goes into this race a total of 0 points above the cutoff. There's no buffer, there's no points gap. It's 0 points. He's on the cut line going into tonight's race. He fell to the cut line last night at Bristol in the ARCA playoff series, so he's going to have some work to do there. But going into this race, he's already starting from that medium part of the playoff grid, in which he has to beat Eric Schaefer, which he is doing right now. He is beating the likes of Lance Hill, who was not here tonight. He is beating Tyler Murray, who is near the rear of the field, a couple laps down. He is beating Michael Newbraw, who's back in P10. He's beating Tyler Warner at this point of the race, but he's not beating Brandon T. Banks, which is a driver +1 on the playoffs, just ahead of Kyle Winston on the playoff grid. So this is as tight as it's going to get all night long, Francisco. 2 playoff drivers right next to each other on the playoff grid, sort of getting to know each other, I'd say, to the least, at lap 63.
Yeah, Benson a little bit of a touch to the wall, but tonight, obviously being the first race of the playoffs, we have 3 more coming up next week at Texas, followed by Nashville Super Speedway and the Talladega Super Speedway. So there's still a lot more action to come from as we have the yellow flag out on the racetrack. You see an incident further back there in turn 4. Couldn't exactly get a good look at it, and it is going to involve the 22 of Eric Schaefer. We were just talking about him being one of those playoff drivers, and right now, a playoff driver in trouble in turn 4, and by the looks of it, Kenneth, may be a little bit of help there.
Similar spot on the track to where Adam Alashire went around to bring us under our first caution, and our second one involves the double deuce, the Kodiak Chevrolet Camaro of Eric Schaefer, of course, in the playoffs this season. And this is not what you want to see if you're a playoff competitor to start off the round of 10. We'll take a look at, see exactly what happened here going into 3 and 4. This is a tap to the outside wall. And indeed, no help. Sort of similar to Alishire's, just a little less dramatic, as I would say, a little less harsh. Goes for a slight spin, goes for a hit to the outside wall. And then all the drivers, of course, slowing down on the brakes to get away. Oh. That was really close there from, I believe that was the 42 of Christopher Bishop who got close, but the 22 of Eric Schaefer going around for a ride, and it's again case of the Darlington strike.
Right here, it seems like this is happening to several guys. Just not enough brakes going into turn 3, and that's something that we probably haven't talked about yet, Kenneth, is that even with this package that we're running here, we understand that you have to slow down for the corners, but there's a lot of braking you have to do in 3 and 4, especially with when these tires wear. And you really, to really make the corner and not get tight, you run a lot of rear brake here, and in doing so, that's probably one of the effects there. You run a lot of rear brake, you're putting a lot of brake pressure in, the car still is not responsive, and by the time you hit the wall, it tries to respond, but by then it's too late. The momentum from the walls, you see almost contact there with that 42 machine. But by the time the car tries to respond, it is too late, and around it goes. And you see right there the brace off pit road, a little bit of 3-wide action there for the 3rd spot as the top 2 remain the same. Doesn't look like there's too many changes throughout the rest of the field, and this is going to work out for everybody here. I believe that the 4 is going to try and get a wave around here. He was a lap down. I'm not sure if he was the lucky dog or not, but either way, he is looking to get at least 1 lap back, as Colin Forster will remain your race leader, Kenneth. And while we're under caution, Kenneth, we acknowledged this at the start of the race, but how about these throwback paints?
Yeah, it's a beautiful list of paint schemes that are on display here tonight from Darlington. Of course, mentioned the top 2's throwbacks a little bit earlier tonight. Colin Forster paying tribute to a Daniel Suarez throwback that pays tribute to another car earlier in stock car history. The 13 of Craig Launslugger paying tributes to Jeff Burton's Sitco car, the car that he ran back in the early 2000s. He also had a similar paint scheme in the ARCA race. That's where I remember this paint scheme from most notably. Of course, there are some drivers that don't have throwback paint schemes, like Brandon T. Banks rocking his similar Geico Chevrolet Camaro that we see usually here and often. AJ Green with a famous throwback to Bill Elliott, the Mac Tonight McDonald's car that Bill Elliott in the 94 used to run back in the day. Kyle Benson with his own illustrious throwback. There's a lot of beautiful cars here in the field, and I think that's one of the staples, Francisco, especially in the past couple of years of Darlington races, is just the fact that everybody can get into sort of that throwback mood, pay tribute to either their families, themselves, drivers they look up to, drivers they were fans of, or drivers that have just placed their marks in stock car history.
Yeah, and really a throwback could be because of anything or to anyone for any reason, really. You try to have a lot of fun with that, and sometimes you even get into the mood of it. We've seen in the past, in real life at least, Kyle Larson, when he ran the 42 Mellow Yellow car, we saw him wear the wig to try and match the Kyle Petty 90s theme. A lot of people tend to have fun with it. And even on iRacing, us people who make paints and make paints for ourselves or teammates, it's a lot of fun to try and do stuff with it. My original throwback paint, my first one was a throwback to the 1920s Boeing colors and Boeing logos, as you probably have noted before. But I made a recent one not too long ago. Because I've already been on iRacing for a year, I decided to make a throwback to my first paint. Not one that I made necessarily. It was made originally by Aiden Kirker. Shout out to an ex-teammate of mine. I took that paint, I made a couple of modifications towards it, and now it is going to be my throwback for a race I have tomorrow at the Legacy, Michigan Speedway. And I'm very excited to run that just because it brings back so many memories from my foundations on the iRacing service and how far I've come along since those days.
I think that's a testament to just how creative you can get to either your experiences, family experiences, to everything. I mean, you can make throwbacks of anything you like, as we're ready to have two throwback paint schemes lead us back to green on the restart of lap 69. Nice of 147 here from Darlington. Again, Colin Forster, solid jump at the 42. Behind there, gets hit in the outside wall, and the caution, will it weigh? The answer is yes. And two drivers near the rear of the field trying to get up to speed either had some contact or had some severe wheel spin. Playoff driver Adam Alishire, the first one involved. Christopher Bishop getting a hit into the outside safer barrier before we even went green flag racing.
So the yellow's out on lap 69, and we'll have to see exactly what happened here, Kenneth, because it happened all of a sudden, and we talked about this on the last restart, that if we get one of these again, it's going to be crucial to see how these guys handle the wheel spin because of the package here. Most mile and a halves or most tracks of this nature, we're used to being able to just smack it full throttle, and I think right there, Bishop probably, it caught him off guard, and you can see right there, it just snapped on him. It wasn't side by side with anybody, just tries to accelerate and has nowhere to go, and Alishire didn't really hit anybody. Yeah, he did not hit anybody, so good avoidance there. We'll ride on board with him here with Tyler Murray, see exactly what happened. So we see he already had damage, but he didn't take the fast repair the Ford did. But Alishire does a great job to avoid Bishop right here. Bishop is just going to dart right here. Almost follows him, but good job avoiding it. And of course, Tyler Murray splits those two in order to miss it. So really only one car got damage out of that, and it was Bishop because Alishire caught a close one almost 3 times there with 2 different people.
That Ford machine definitely has not had the best of nights here tonight from Darlington as he comes down for the pit lane. Alishire, of course, has not elected to burn the fast repair tonight. Actually, he has, so he's got already the fast repair burned off early in tonight's race. Just accrued some extra damage, and he's just going to have to hold on to pit road, hold out hope that he can get that car repaired and that it doesn't lose him too much speed. The fortunate thing for him is that, like a lot of other short tracks, like a lot of some road courses, depending on the track, this car, at least with this combo, does not necessarily rely too much on the aerodynamic effects of the race car. Like, let's say, Kansas, Homestead, Las Vegas, a lot of the bigger intermediate tracks will have you suffer dearly if you hit the wall or have some sort of crinkle on any sort of part of the car because it hurts you aerodynamically when you're going so fast with that package specifically. But because this track is a little bit shorter, because we're using this different package, you can get a hit to the outside wall. It'll affect you a little bit, maybe on the handling side, of course on the damage side, because it's not going to look good having a bent up right front or a bent up left front or a bent up rear end, but you're probably not going to be so detrimental. It's not going to be so detrimental on the aerodynamic effects of the race car, so you can mostly carry the speed. Just the long straights may be a problem, but it can be sort of mitigated for the most part on this kind of package as we remain under yellow flag, and telemetry tells us we'll go about probably 40 minutes if we stay green for the next 76 laps up until the end of this race. So we're approaching around halfway, and I guess while we're already halfway, let's take a look at your race summary, see exactly how this race has unfolded. We started off with a very long green flag run before our first yellow involving Adam Alashar. We total was 77 laps to go. On lap 70 at 147, we've had a total of 3 cautions. That caution with Bishop and Alashar are our most recent. We've had a total of 11 caution laps and a total of 1 lead change. You're looking at the driver who created that 1 lead change, Colin Forrester, after Brian M. Smith decided to disconnect from the server in the race lead. That is your race summary at the halfway mark of tonight's first playoff race from Darlington. All right, so we get to be a little bit calm. I guess we can expand a little bit on sort of the throwback aspect and how creative you can be with it. I remember Kurt Busch not too long ago, was it 2018 or 2019? Correct me here, Francisco, what year it was, but I remember Kurt Busch as an initiative to create a throwback scheme for Darlington weekend in the NASCAR Cup Series. He decided to not throw it back to a driver, not throw it back to a team, not throw it back to his family. He threw it back to himself, his old Chevrolet Camaro, a 1969 first generation Chevy Camaro. He decided to put that sort of red and white scheme on the car, have some, of course, sponsor logos, because that's what you need to have in a team in the NASCAR Cup Series and a part of Chip Ganassi Racing. But it was not even a team, it wasn't a famous racer, it was just his old car. That's how creative he got.
Yeah, it was 2019, as that's the year he was with CGR, the year before he was with Stewart-Haas and Ford. I do remember that paint, Kenneth, and that was a really creative idea out of Kurt Busch to do that. Just remembering the old Camaro from the way back when, and decided, why not just put the same stickers on this race car? It's the same model. Just run it. It's an interesting throwback, and it was a great idea. I feel that ideas like that will probably be embraced going forward. I don't think it'll be matched in terms of originality, because obviously that was the first time anyone really thought of that. But maybe in the future someone will think of doing maybe the Bumblebee.
Well, maybe we end up with an Autobot paint scheme, and hopefully the car doesn't turn into a big robot and start stomping all over the other cars on the racetrack. But nonetheless, we're back under green here, lap 73 of 147. Colin Forrester, of course, takes command once again. No drama here on the opening start, but there is a bit of side-by-side action and a pass for third. That's Austin Riddy, who's on the upswing here. Remember, we talked about his move up through the field after starting back in 7th on the restart. He's now up to the podium once again throughout the field, making the quick move on Brendan Banks. Same deal here for the 48 of AJ Green. And here's a pivotal pass for the playoffs in points. Benson gets around the 88.
Banks struggled big time on this restart. He's lost about 4 spots there, and he has really quickly lost ground and already on the back foot for this next run. And right there you see, just like the last run, the 13 of Lonslager pressurizing your leader at the very initial portion of the run. You see a little bit more separation of the cars behind, so maybe he tries to be a little bit more aggressive, knowing that at least the car behind him is not directly behind him, but right now unable to really make a move on your race leader. And that's just kind of been the way it's been. And with Forrester also having that clean exit off pit road, with Brian M. Smith not being in the race anymore, that essentially puts him as the #1 pit stop. It's going to be very difficult to beat him off of pit road, especially when you've been coming into pit road second every single time. When he comes in with the lead, he gets that extra acceleration off being ahead of you. So it's going to be very difficult. And restarts, of course, are very difficult to time when you're not the leader, and he has this whole wide area to go by. So it's very difficult if you're not the leader to try and take the lead away, which is why I believe if he's able to get side by side for just a split second but have enough forward momentum, he is going to try and take this lead away, because clean air, track position, it is crucial.
It is very crucial, especially over the long runs when, like we mentioned, the field will start to thin out, things will start to separate. And, of course, the cars are going to get harder to handle. That was a big send there for the 13. Looked like he really dove it deep into that corner that time. Slid up to the wall, was able to keep it out of the fence. But he does lose time in turn to Colin Forrester, I guess in an attempt to just try and catch the race leader and make this pass early on. That's exactly, I feel, what he wants to do this opening run while the tires are still fresh. But Lounslugger still has yet to make that move noticeable here. He almost looked once not too long ago in the race, but ever since then, he's just kind of fallen back. And once again, he'll fall to the clutches now 0.4 of a second between second and first. Your race leader, it's heating up no for third on back. Mentioned Austin Reedy used the inside line to get around Brandon Banks. AJ Green was soon to follow. Now the playoff driver of the 48, the Beef Machine, trying to get to the inside. I like that. We've got Beef tonight instead of we got Mac tonight. Very creative paint scheme there, and a throwback from AJ Green for Stock Motorsports as he tries to get another point over fellow competitor Kyle Benson just behind.
I had some beef for lunch today, so maybe that was probably not the way to go. I probably should have had some McDonald's, if that's what AJ Green's indicating by that.
Well, there's no logos on the cars, so, I mean, it's not copyright. It's insinuating it. It's kind of like that subliminal. It mentions it, kind of, but not explicitly. So you kind of get the idea, but it doesn't explicitly say it, so you can't get sued. You can't get copyrighted. Yep, it's not in the contract. Nonetheless, the Beef Machine, AJ Green. Let's take a look on board, and how about we take a listen of how it is to drive a NASCAR Cup Series stock car around a Darlington Raceway. Let's take a lap with the 48 of AJ Green.
Probably the most notable thing on that lap, Kenneth, is in turn two. When you're on board with a driver like that, especially as the run goes on, you're going to hear them going on and off continuously with the throttle in turn two if they're unable to really hold it out. Because as soon as you have to hesitate in turn two, you're going to be hesitating all the way throughout until you get to the straightaway, just because it is so slick, but also the corner exit is just so tight as well. We've seen it many times how you have to really turn the car down to the bottom and it shoots up the racetrack. And that could make it very difficult as the run goes on. We'll see here with these leaders as they go by. They're going to slide up to the top, and the line is going to change. You're going to want to go all the way to the bottom, and right there, bam, right to the outside. And if you don't have a car that's capable of holding it down and keeping it under control, it could easily get away from you. You plow that outside wall.
We've seen the wall carry some victims here tonight. Of course, Adam Alashar, Eric Schaefer, two playoff drivers being some of them, and I think if the motto is going to be clear here over the course of the halfway mark of the race is that don't hit the wall. Don't try and hit the wall. If you're going to hit it, give it a brush. Don't slam it, or else it's going to be a rough night for you, because that car is going to either handle poorly after the hit, or you may end up around just like Adam Alashar and Eric Schaefer did a little bit earlier on tonight. Here's a potential battle for what is P6. Of course, he mentioned just how far Banks had fallen back on the initial restart. Now he may be falling to the clutches of Richmond winner earlier this season, Lawson Peel. Of course, Peel, rookie, not eligible for the playoffs this campaign just because of the lack of starts. He joined rather late into the season, but Peel has made a mark on the rest of the field. Almost closed out a win at the Charlotte Motor Speedway earlier the year. Lost to rookie Nicholas Gowan, but earned redemption at the Richmond Raceway after taking two tires on the last pit stop. Was able to run away from the field on green-white checkered circumstances and was able to capture his first ever full wide racing victory. Almost caught one last night. It ended heartbreakingly for him, but Peel's getting a lot of momentum here and putting some pressure on the playoff driver. Kind of interesting, the dynamic here between a driver who's running for the championship, a driver who's running that has nothing to lose, that's just running for the win, and how they treat each other respectively on the track.
Yeah, the relationship between playoff drivers and non-playoff drivers, we're going to see that as the playoffs progresses, because you can easily make enemies doing so. We've seen it many times in NASCAR where even the playoff drivers have beef amongst themselves, and that always will persist, and we see it every single year. Someone always gets upset with the other one, and if one of them happens to get eliminated, it does not end well for the other. I think if you think back towards every season under this playoff format, there's been at least one instance that you can think of a driver having beef with someone else, or at least a major incident happening, even if it doesn't result in any sort of major issues. You think back to the first year of the format, Jeff Gordon, Kevin Harvick, and Brad Keselowski. Those three had trouble at Texas. The next year, Matt Kenseth, Joey Logano and Carl Edwards the year following in that championship race. You think of 2017, you also think of I think it was Chase Elliott and Ryan Newman. They also had beef. Ryan Newman, not a playoff driver in that Dover race. And in 2018, Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano. 2019, Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin. In 2020, I want to say it was I don't remember. I think it was a Hendrick driver. But this year, everybody remembers it was Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick. But my point stands that there's almost always an issue with someone that's either both in the playoffs or someone that's in the playoffs and someone that's not in the playoffs, and it ends up costing them.
And we see a lot of instances. I mean, you pointed out multiple examples there. Playoff drivers who get within drama within each other, get within beef, and then either one gets eliminated in the case of Matt Kenseth and Kevin Harvick, and then they still carry that tension, and they still either try to make their playoff runs worse or just try to stay away from each other for the most part. I can recall the Charlotte Roval, Kevin Harvick, who was a non-playoff driver, I believe at the time, or was a playoff driver, if you can correct me there. I've had it all mixed up. Yeah. But nonetheless, got into him, put Chase Elliott around on the infield section coming back to the NASCAR Oval, and then while Harvick was trying to get to Chase Elliott, while Chase Elliott was right on the cusp of entering turn one, Harvick overshoots and then ends up into the Tums Hartburn turn, or it's a completely different name now, but we know it as the Tums Hartburn turn one. And of course the drama ended up where Chase Elliott saying the famous wish him a merry off season and a happy Christmas. To the end of the season, Chase Elliott ended up finishing 4th out of the championship 4 there at Phoenix Raceway. But we're looking at drivers who are potentially sitting within the championship 5. Colin Forrester, who leads the field in playoff grid going into tonight's race with the most wins out of his last win at Rockingham not too long ago. Now, he's leading this race, and what would this mean here, Francisco, for the 99 of Forrester? I mean, shocking us all in the first 3 races of the season, went to victory lane multiple times in a row to start the campaign, then went on a little bit of a mid-season slump, found his way back to victory lane at the tough track in Rockingham, North Carolina, and has been dominating this race ever since Brian M. Smith left due to his multiple mistakes. So what could this mean for the playoff leader to have a dominating run like this and set the tone for the rest of the playoff grid at this track?
Colin Forrester's definitely proven himself to be one of the favorites going into this championship postseason run. But I think the main thing you have to think of is, yeah, he got those 3 wins in a row to start the season and has 4 overall. But in the last about 20 or so races, it's just that 1 win that he's had. And it's not that he hasn't been able to deliver the results, but we know that in these championship situations, in these playoff moments, winning races matters. Winning races almost becomes a must. And he has to be able to prove himself in the playoffs, because this is when you have to step up and really show what you're made of. And of course, him being a rookie in the series, we haven't seen him having to do so just yet. And this is his opportunity to do so. Of course, he's battling with some non-playoff drivers, so he doesn't have to exactly wring his neck out big time in order to battle these guys, because these guys have less to lose than your race leader. Your race leader has playoff situations to think about. These guys behind him, they just want to win this race.
And I think that's what makes things easier for Colin Forrester, because you have 2 drivers behind you that are just trying to go for the win. So you know what their motive is, you know what they want to do, and then you have a buffer to the next playoff driver in the race, and that's 4th place Kyle Benson, who's a couple of seconds behind these guys. So while Colin Forrester is getting reeled in a little bit by Craig Lownslugger, he is still holding them off, which in turn gives him that buffer, gives him the space between himself and Benson, and he can stay pretty stress-free up at the front of the field. Just got to make sure that he plays it clean with Craig Lownslugger and that he doesn't make any mistakes on his own right behind the wheel of that 99 Chevrolet Camaro. So while he continues to lead this race, it's top 3, sort of a breakaway. Kyle Benson, the next one in line. Lawson Peel rounds out the top 5. He was able to get around the likes of Brandon Banks. AJ Green, who was up near the front of the field at one point, has fallen back to as far as 7th. So his car has severely fallen off over the past couple of laps, and either his tires are not really working with him or the car is just not up to snuff. Also, the fact that he's hit the outside wall a couple of times, that also plays into the speed that he's carried so far. But nonetheless, Colin Forrester, 3-time race winner this season, looking for win number 5 to lock himself into the championship 5. We'll take a short break, but you won't miss a thing here on MaxSpeedTV. Forrester leads over Lautenschlager on lap 96 of 147.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12-Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
It's the thirstiest time of the year. I have just one query.
Want a Sprite cranberry?
The answer is clear. It's the thirstiest time of the year. Sprite, let's go.
We've been waiting for this moment. Generations of innovation all coming together in one place. The pedigree of more than 70 years of NASCAR Cup Series history, from the past to the present, from Petty to Earnhardt to Elliott. Today, there's no more waiting. The future of NASCAR is now. Drive the next-gen cars today on iRacing and step into the next generation of racing.
Welcome back to coverage of the first race of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs from the virtual Darlington Raceway. You're looking currently at your top two. Colin Forster continues to lead this race. He's dominated most of the event since taking the lead over for Brian M. Smith, but he's had Craig Lounslugger on his coattail following through. He has yet to give up, and we are closing in on, once again, green flag pit stops, or pretty much for the first time tonight, green flag pit stops. We didn't see it last time due to a yellow. Of course, Kenneth Bueno, Francisco Bacalao along with you for the ride here on MaxSpeedTV. And Francisco, of course, over the commercial break, saw a new addition in the middle of the iRacing ads, a Sprite Cranberry ad, which I think a lot of meme enthusiasts are into. A lot of people on the internet still adoring that meme dearly, with LeBron James opening the door and saying, want a Sprite Cranberry. But that is a signal that we are in holiday season. We are December 1st, so it's the first day of the month. That means we're closing in on what's going to be Christmas time here all across the world, and that means we're closing in on championship time a couple of days after to close the year with the 4-Wide Cup Series.
The infamous merry off season has arrived. It is the last month of the year. It is that holiday season, the holiday spirit, Christmas, New Year's, all that sort of end of the year stuff that is always welcome and always fun to enjoy with family and friends alike. And of course, it's that time of the year where you get your occasional Spotify Wrapped for those who use the Spotify platform. I know I do. I think you use iTunes. And of course, it's that time of the year where we hear Mariah Carey on the radio nonstop the whole month. So it is definitely a joy of times. But all I want for Christmas right now, Kenneth, is to see exactly what these guys do with pit stops. We see Kyle Benson was running in that third spot. He decided to short pit. That should put him ahead of those leaders, and it should put him decently out front, though he'll be at a disadvantage between now and the end of the race, because as Forster, as you see, he's going to actually have a really shallow entry. He's going to lose a pretty decent amount of time doing so on the entry. You see actually the car behind him, that's the 13, had an even slower entry, so they're very conservative coming onto pit road. I think you could be a bit more aggressive. Actually, there's the 13 now. I want to say that was Banks behind them. So interesting situations going on here, different strategies, but this should cycle out with Benson being your leader.
And Kyle Benson had moved his way up to third before the start of these green flag pit stops. So Benson looking to short pit here, maybe get the strategy and best Colin Forster here. Is Forster now going to enter pit road? His teammate AJ Green, who pitted a lap earlier, is now going to finally exit. I believe he took some extra time to get some damage repair on his Chevrolet Camaro, but as for the leader, Forster, he's going to stop at pit road, and it all leaves Brandon Banks up at the front, who's now going to hit pit road. Michael Newbraw on his Hudson Hornet throwback. He's going to barely miss the cone there, but he is going to make pit road speed limit. He's going to be on pit road. Tyler Warner is going to be the next one to follow to end up on the pit lane. Warner going into this race, a playoff driver, all the way in 10th, 1 point behind the cut line. And now Kyle Benson with a cheeky call here at this point of the race. Francisco could be in position to win. He's going to be cycling back to the race lead in a couple of moments.
As I said, he short pitted, but also they were very conservative coming onto pit road. If you saw what Forrester and the 13 of Lounslugger did, they were very conservative coming in, and maybe they were doing so because of what their positions were on the racetrack. Obviously, Benson short pitted, but he was very aggressive coming onto pit road. He was maximizing his entry, and that could really gain you a lot of time. And we'll see exactly when this cycles out just how far the separation is. And I mentioned how it could be at a disadvantage. Warner hard into the wall. He's going to miss those other cars. He's going to slide to the bottom, but he has it under control. He should be able to get back, no problems. I don't think we'll have a yellow flag waved for this one. So he should be coming down pit road probably this time to best his situation, and actually no, he's going to stay out another lap. But right now the gap between Lounslugger and Benson is round about 2.5 to 3 seconds. There you see the gap now to the 99 machine, who has to now catch up to Lounslugger, who pitted a lap earlier. So does track position help Lounslugger hold off the 99, or does the one lap tires do justice for Forster to catch up to him? And of course this is all for third. Well, Peel's actually in front of these guys, as well as Reedy, and still 33, who has yet to pit, and there he comes now. So they still have to get past Lawson Peel, but they should be able to, because I think Peel pitted much earlier than these guys. So once this cycles out, it's eventually for second, and the question is, can they get past Kyle Benson in time?
We'll just have to see, and of course fresh tires may play into that as well. But with this whole strategy, with many of these guys short pitting before Forster did, has put Forster in a very peculiar spot, because now he's slid up to 5th. but he is trying to catch up to the likes of Lounslugger, Reedy, Peel, and of course your race leader Kyle Benson. But they have put a lot of space between a lot of these guys. It's now 4.5 seconds, and Forster has got some work to do here to get back up to the front. It could be the question as to whether he may burn his tires up before he gets up to the front of the field, or whether he makes mistakes in the midst of the pack. Really, Forster has not experienced in race traffic for really the entire race apart from some lap traffic, and they've really given him the time of day to get out of the way and make sure that he gets around cleanly. They both don't end up in a hard racing situation. But for Benson, this may be the strategy that he needs, Francisco, after what's been a very negative season overall after what happened in the last campaign where he wrecked out of the Championship 5 contention at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, had some wins to his name, but ever since his last win at the Kansas Speedway, he has yet to find himself back with a checkered flag in hand. And tonight with this strategy, it could very well be the placement for the playoff driver to get back into Championship 5 territory with a win tonight from Darlington.
And we can't just give it to him yet, of course, because Lawson Peel is right there, right behind him. Also a playoff driver trying to see if he can get another race win on his season. And we know he's going to try his best to do so. This is a big opportunity for these guys to get into that Championship 5. I don't believe it is a win and lock-in situation in the Cup Series. I believe it is just purely who can get the most points. And of course, to get the most points possible, winning the race definitely helps. One thing that will help Benson, though, is he has a teammate to play chess for him in that third position. He could really race these guys hard because, I mean, heck, the 11 car wants to finish on the podium. Of course he does. He hasn't exactly had a bright season either. So if Austin Reedy races those guys very aggressively to try and finish on the podium, it'll be very good for himself, his team, but of course Kyle Benson as well, because it holds off these playoff drivers. So there's a lot on the line that could still happen. Those guys back there are slightly gaining your top 3, but again, the question comes down to, as they're in the midst of traffic, that's going to cost them time. Whether they get through it quickly or not, it's still going to cost them time. But the question is, can they get there at the end of the race? I think they'll get there. I don't think they'll be able to get by.
Of course, at Darlington, that's the staple. You can get close to a driver, but you really have to set up your passes in a methodical manner in order to really get anywhere across the field. And for Colin Forrester, he's put in that situation where he has to make moves, which in many cases he hasn't really been able to make moves all night long, just because the leader, Brian M. Smith, disconnected. So the pass was pretty much complete before he even tried to make the pass complete. So Forrester now is going to have to really work here on the 13. Make sure you can give him a run for his money while they're splitting lap traffic as well. That's Eric Schaefer in the 22 who went down pit road. He's got some fresh rubber too, so he can try and put his hat in the ring, maybe play some spoiler here as a playoff driver. That's what you may want to see if you're that 22. Maybe just mess these things up if you're a lapped car. And then, of course, the driver up in front, AJ Green, he's also one lap down. He may also play spoiler in this one because as a 7th place car, or rather a car in between this group, not AJ Green, it's somebody else in this midst of this group right up in front. That's the 56 of Newbraw, by the way, the 56 machine. He's also a playoff driver, so why not make some moves here in the final 23 laps of this race to change the whole complexion for Colin Forrester, playoff leader, and maybe, just maybe, help your situation out if you're one of those guys.
Yeah, these guys are definitely aware of the points. They know exactly what they have to do. As look at Benson get real loose off turn 4, but these guys know what the point situation are. They know who they have to beat. They know what more or less the situation is in their mind going in. So if they can help themselves by putting someone that they know they can beat, or they're racing against to cost them 1 point to help themselves out, they'll do it. They maybe won't publicly admit it, but in behind the wheel of the race car, that is exactly what's going through your mind. You're trying to think, how can I tactically make this work? And that's what every driver does in any situation, because you kind of have to. It has happened before. It will continue to happen, and that's really part of racing. When you get to this time of the year, you have to start thinking that way, because if you don't do it, it'll happen to you. And it's kind of that eat or be eaten attitude that you have to keep in mind. As you see, Lonsdorfer doesn't have that great of an exit. Forster's going to get to his inside, but does he have enough forward momentum to put on a move into turn 3? He's going to try to make the bottom work. The answer is no. 13 is going to be able to stay in front of Forster, and obviously can't really make a move in turn 1. He gets loose. He's going to have to settle back in. And you see right up there, Michael Newbraw is a lap down. He's not on the lead lap. He's challenging Austin Reedy on the racetrack, which is not going to help Reedy as far as trying to keep a gap to these two. But right now, it looks like these two might not be able to catch up to your race leaders. They spent so much time battling each other, but also staying behind New Brawl, and soon enough they're going to have to deal with the 11 of Reedy. But I must say, Kenneth, up front for the lead, Lawson Peel has not let go of Kyle Benson. He's still rather close. He's keeping him honest, but all it takes this season for Kyle Benson to get a win is moving that number forward. He should have done that since the beginning.
Indeed does so, and as he continues to hold on to Lawson Peel, it's about 3/10 now, 4/10 of a second as they come back for turn 3. And as they come across the line, that last time by, it was 20 laps to go. So Kyle Benson just needs to lock these 20 down without a caution or without any crucial mistakes to try and continue as a race winner, and he'll get his first win in this 4-Wide Racing Cup season. Here's a big move potentially as they cut through Michael Newball lap traffic. Forrester gets caught up in it, almost checked up just a bit, almost hit the outside wall, but he's okay. He's gonna stay behind Lounslugger, and that's gonna only push the Camry and the Camaro closer to the Murray Reedy Motorsports machine of Austin Reedy. And now the question is, does Reedy play harshly to these two, or does he let them by cleanly?
Well, he is friends with the 13 of Lounslugger, but his teammate's leading this race, so I think he's going to do whatever he can to at least hold him up a little bit. There's 18 laps to go, and I know he trusts his teammate to really make this work, but all he's trying to do is buy him enough time. You see Lounslugger actually struggled there in the middle of 1 and 2. That's going to allow the 99 to get closer to him, but can't really make a move going into turn 3. He just isn't quite there enough, and Reedy not doing anything right now. He's just still running his line. And that is good enough in of itself because it forces these guys to have to run that bottom. And we saw a couple laps ago, that bottom in 3 and 4, no grip whatsoever in order to make a move. Just the top is the way to go. And if you're able to hold that line, then you should be in a decent enough position as we are now with 16 and a half laps to go. They're 3 seconds behind your race leader. And with just under 18 laps to go, Kenneth, what that means is you're going to have to gain about 0.3 of a second each lap. And quite frankly, that does not appear as it's going to happen. So their hopes of catching up to your leaders without help of a caution does not seem like it's going to happen. So it's going to look like it's going to come down to, as far as the race win is concerned, between Lawson Peel and Kyle Benson. But this battle for third is still going to be crucial because it still involves some playoff drivers trying to find their way through some non-playoff drivers.
And I think that's what the crucial part about Kyle Benson's strategy was, is that you open that window based on how these drivers needed to pit in that window with about 45 laps to go, or give or take around that time. That gives him that sort of ample amount of window to do this, to have this amount of gap by the time the race closes down and by the time everybody tries to cycle back. So Benson, with this short pitch strategy, probably thought, okay, there's a good amount of time left in this race, which means I have enough time to short pit, get my time, be able to be out on some of the older tires in the field, and then hold these guys up and give them a tall task to try and catch up to me. So Benson being a little bit smart here on the strategy, as here comes Forrester inside turns 3 and 4, finally trying to make this move once again on the likes of Craig Lounslugger, but it may not work. He's going to keep the nose in to 1 and 2. First time we see a bit of side-by-side action. Forrester this time going to lay back. He's not going to take the risk.
Can't really do that in 1 and 2. Just too much of a risk. But not to mention that shallow entry was not going to help as Lounslugger gets loose off the corner, scrapes the wall, but doesn't lose too much time. Maybe a little bit of brushing action, not real actual slapping of the wall, so that shouldn't hurt his car too much. But you can see that Reedy isn't doing anything, and that's kind of the whole idea. He's not doing anything at all to hold these guys up, and that was exactly what Kyle Benson wanted to see. His teammate running his race, doing exactly what he has to do, and not allowing these guys to make up time. And they've actually lost time. They've lost about half a second in the last 3 laps to your race leader. And here goes, actually, look right there, Lawson Peel was around.
Do we get a yellow here? Answer is no, with Peel. Severe damage to the rear end. He was underneath the apron onto the racing line. So we will stay green flag racing, although that does take a position away in that buffer that Benson had. To the rest of the guys behind him, take a look at the replay, see exactly how Peel got in trouble, and it's another case of that outside wall. Lawson Peel in trouble there. There he is behind the leader, pushes a little bit too hard, and then goes slamming into the inside safety barrier, goes around. That's what results in no caution, though. being underneath the racing line, merging back fairly safely as Eric Schaefer almost got into him, but merging back up to speed fairly safely underneath that dashed white line. And for now, barely we stay green.
Yeah, that was definitely what resulted in no yellow. The fact that he went around under the apron. And right here, you see now the battle for what is now second is still popping off as the 99 is going to try to go to the inside of the 13 once more. If he can use the 11 as a pick, it should help his attempts of using that inside line, but still unable to work as he gets loose off the corner. He's going to have to get back single file, and it's just not able to happen for Colin Forster. Still stuck in that 4th position, but what an excellent job Lautenschlager is doing to hold on to this 3rd position. But how about Austin Reedy, Kenneth? He has not had the season he's wanted to. That whole team really, for that matter, the Big Fast Racing has not exactly had the season they've wanted to. They don't have a win this season all in the Cup Series, and right now they're running 1-2 with what you would call an alliance teammate in the 3rd position. So if they're able to hang on to this sort of result, it would be very pleasing for this organization coming off what was an extraordinary season last time around. But this is the kind of result that team needs right now.
And they can hold on to a podium and a race win, both in one night with 9 laps to go. Benson is going to come across for 8 laps remaining from the Darlington Raceway. And again, like you mentioned, Francisco, 3 drivers in Big Fast Racing got race wins last campaign. Reedy was a winner at Bristol. Benson was a 2-time winner starting at the Charlotte Roval. Tyler Murray was a winner at Daytona. But now Austin Reedy trying to play heavy defense as he struck the outside wall the last time by in 3 and 4, holding on to what could be a potential podium here for the 11 machine. Almost get to the wall there off turn 2 and still playing the chance here to Lautenschlager, but that only grows that gap to 3.2 seconds, where Kyle Benson sits clear ahead of the field. 7 laps to go, this time from Darlington.
Benson's not in a rush at all. He knows he has 3.2 seconds, and he plans on using it all up in the next 7 laps to make sure that he doesn't make a mistake. And that's the kind of thought process you have to have as the leader. There's no reason to push your car at a track like Darlington when you have a lead like that, and when you have a teammate behind you who is going to defend like a lion, as Fernando Alonso asked from Esteban Ocon just a couple of weeks ago. That's exactly what is going on here right now, and he's doing so. Defending like a lion is that 11, trying to make sure that the 13 can't get by him. And you see, trying to make a move to the inside, going in turn 1. We'll see if the move gets made or not. He's going to go to the apron. He's going to lose a lot of grip, and that's going to allow Forster to get to the... Actually, Forster gets into the wall there. So superb defending once again by the 11 of Austin Reedy, just running his line as he actually tags the wall. He keeps it going in the right direction. He's going to hold on to that position, but superb defense by just running his line.
And he is running hard. You can tell he's running 150% just to keep this spot intact. And he knows, coupled with just how hard it is to pass, as Reedy hits the wall. Is he going to be able to save it? Forster and Newbrock clear. Is that a yellow?
Good.
No, it's not. Reedy keeps it straight. And that could have almost sent the race into peril for his teammate. But Benson keeps it clean. It's 5 laps to go.
It's a shame for the 11 that happened, but guess what? That's the job done. That's given his teammate a really big lead, and they've lost a lot more time having to check up for the 11 in the first place. So it is all up to Kyle Benson right now. He has the lead to do it. I don't think he'll lose all the time. All he has to do is not make a mistake and come back to the white flag, and he can get his first win of the season.
Kyle Benson, remember last time he went to victory lane was in a Ford Mustang with the Grave Digger paint scheme at Kansas Speedway in the playoffs to get him an entry spot into the Championship 5. Lost out in a wreck off turn 4 after a heartbreaking season, has suffered a slump all campaign long. As he comes across the line for 3 laps to go from the track too tough to tame, he's getting closer to tame it and getting closer to a step into the Championship 5 for the 2nd time in a row. As Benson stays clear, Lautenschlager way too far to fight. 4.3 seconds. Him and Forrester have lost too much time fighting with Austin Reedy. They burned up too much of their tires, and Benson will come off 3 and 4 for 2 laps remaining.
It's been a tough season for Kyle Benson. There's been no way around that, Kenneth. It's not been... He hasn't had the same speed. He hasn't had the same luck. It has gone all awry. There's been some times where he's shown a glimpse of what he was able to do last season, And when that opportunity has arisen, we've just seen the finish not be there. Just things have gone wrong, like in Kansas, like at Daytona last week. But it is starting to look really good right now. We know Benson's a closer. We know he's able to rise to the occasion. He's going to take the white flag and start the final lap at Darlington, Kenneth. And much like Denny Hamlin did this past season, he had no wins in the regular season, was in contention, made the playoffs, and Kyle Benson's done the exact same thing. No wins. He's made the playoffs, but when it matters most, he is absolutely capitalizing right now. Played the right strategy, was holding on back because you see him a little bit of swerving action. Already feel like this win is going to be in hand. He works his way through 3 and 4, Kenneth, and absolutely stealing this one away from the dominant 2 drivers. Kyle Benson gets his first win of the season, and he snaps the win streak at Darlington.
And he locks himself into the Championship 5. Kyle Benson, your winner from Darlington on a short pit call. As he celebrates there, a big drift in a 1 and 2, actually a flawless drift. How about that? For the celebration already underway, Craig Lownslager, fantastic defense in second. Colin Forrester suffers the heartbreak of dominating the race but not capitalizing near the end. But fortunately for him, he will most likely stay within the Championship 5 via points. But he's lost out to Kyle Benson on the checkered flag, as Benson can call himself a winner finally in Season 3 of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series. He burns it down from the Lady in Black.
And again, Kenneth, mind we say, what a steal by Kyle Benson. He was nowhere near the front until that last run of the race. He just came up through there, and in that last run, he inserted himself into this one. You see he's trying to figure out how he's going to celebrate this one. It's been a while. He's been able to do it on the ARCA side, but it's been a while with these Cup cars since he's been able to do so. And right there, about to burn it down on the front straightaway, celebrating as the other car on the side further down the front straightaway. But it's all about Kyle Benson doing the Denny Hamlin, went winless in the regular season after a great season last time out, and he wins at Darlington for his first race win of the season. And maybe this is what he needs to change momentum. We saw it happen in the ARCA series. That win changed his season. Maybe the same thing happens here.
So after having a couple of wins on the ARCA side, you can finally call the dual win column, I guess, for the ARCA series and the Cup series. There's teammate Tyler Warner to celebrate along with him. Warner did not have the greatest of races here tonight from Darlington, but he's gonna sort of celebrate here with his teammate. They'll do a dual burnout. There's Colin Forrester giving his congratulations, crossing the line. Forrester comes home in the top 3, but it is Kyle Benson, your winner here tonight after 147 laps from the Darlington Raceway. Let's take a look at your full field results. See exactly where every single driver finished at the end of this race. It was a long one. It was filled with strategy, filled with cautions, but Kyle Benson locks himself into the Championship 5 via the win tonight on the short pit call. Craig Lownslager, who also short pitted, former race leader Colin Forrester, holds on for second, 4.5 seconds behind your race winner. Colin Forrester, who dominated most of this race, ends up in the top 3 on the podium. Austin Reedy, who played heavy defense to Lownslager and Forrester respectively in the final laps, makes the mistake, but he rebounds for 4th. Brandon Banks, who was trying to beat Kyle Benson going into tonight, can't beat him here in this race, but he finishes in 5th. Lawson Peel will come home in 6th after a almost caution flag near the end of the race. AJ Green for Stock Motorsports will arrive in 7th. Adam Alashar will come home in P8 after an early crash. Michael Newbraw will finish 1 lap down in the 9th position, and Tyler Warner, also 1 lap down, will cap off the top 10.
The rest of the field will consist of Christopher Bishop finishing also 1 lap down in the 11th position. Eric Schaefer did not have the playoff race he wanted to from the 12th position. Tyler Murray did not finish this race, had to go just before the end of this one, finishes in 13th position. CJ Munier in 14th. Curtis Kelly in the 15th position. Joey Ray in 16th. Brian M. Smith dominant early in the first 20 laps or so, but left rather early with no real word as to the reason why. And Tristan Bailey was our first exit from this race, finishing in the 18th and final position.
That's your full race field from tonight, the Darlington Raceway, and Kyle Benson is able to walk away victorious for the first time this season. It will be our time to head to Victory Lane and talk with your winner and new Championship 5 entrant, Kyle Benson, for Big Fast Racing. We'll bring Kyle Benson in from Victory Lane. And Kyle, it feels like it's been a long time. 2 wins in last season, entrance to the Championship 5. Didn't go the way you planned it. You went this entire season up to this point without a win. Felt like you've gotten close, but you couldn't get to the cigar. Finally, with a short pick call, you win, and you're in the Championship 5 once again. How does that feel?
Man, I just won Darlington. I hate this track for some reason, but now I love it. I feel great. Finally get the monkey off my back. The win streak is over. I finally got the win. I can finally call myself a winner again. Wow, I can't believe it.
And all of this came with a masterclass of a pit call there near the end where you decided to pit earlier than Colin Forrester and Craig Lownslugger. Walk us through that decision. Was that the entire plan the whole way while you guys were green flag racing, or was it kind of on the fly in order to get you to this spot near the end of the race?
I knew it was going to be hard to pass, so I wanted to make sure that undercut was perfect, and I played it out great, and it played out awesome and beautiful, and it really sucks that Lawson, though. He was going to give me a run for my money, so he was giving me the sweats at the end. But it was hard to pass Craig. It was hard to pass, actually, in general, but it was really hard to get to the guys up front with Forrester and Craig. They dominated the whole race. So, but talk about a highway robbery. I mean, I kind of stole that one.
You steal it, and you end up in victory lane for the first time in this campaign. I want to ask about sort of the pressure that you felt. Of course, you said Lawson Peel giving you the run for the money as a non-playoff driver, but what was in your mind regarding the playoff driver that was behind you in Colin Forrester? Because up to that point where you had taken the lead, he had dominated the whole race. Of course, your teammate Austin Reedy was in play as well. Brandon Banks was near the top 5. So what was your mindset? Were you thinking more about the drivers behind and how they were going to start to catch up to you? Or was it all about just how you could play your perfect race near the end to come away with the victory like you do tonight?
I just ran my race. I knew they were going to be quick. I kind of hoped they had a big enough gap to the point where they couldn't catch me. And I had that with about 5 to go, so I was just kind of cruising at that point. So I was kind of worried about my own race with Peel and just making sure I was ahead of him and just making sure I was saving tires enough to where I could push at the end.
Well, you end up getting this win, and you can end up in the Championship 5 once again, which is going to be at the Atlanta Motor Speedway in the end of this year, coming to 2022. Kyle, though, before we let you go for this victory, anybody you just want to thank for making this possible, team, sponsors, or just anybody you just want to give the love and shout outs to?
T-Bird Designs, MTC Esports, great group of guys to work with. Big Fast Racing and Murray Reed Motorsports, great teams to be a part of. Everybody comes to the 4 Wide Racing Series every single week, and you guys making a hell of a broadcast.
We certainly appreciate the support, Kyle. I want to congratulate you on the win here tonight from Darlington, South Carolina. And we can say, welcome to the Championship 5. Congratulations once again.
Is my goodie bag to the left or the right?
I'm sorry?
Is my goodie bag to the left or the right?
It's on the right.
Oh, it's on the right? All right.
On the right? All right, Kyle. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the win here tonight from Darlington. Wishing the best of luck through the rest of the playoffs. And we'll see you at Atlanta in the Championship 5.
All right, thank you.
Kyle Benson, your winner. I feel ashamed that I didn't really get that joke near the end. But nonetheless, Kyle Benson is the winner here tonight from Darlington. He'll head for the Championship 5 at Atlanta in a couple of weeks' time. Let's talk to the driver who had a run in second, a run for the ages here at Darlington after finishing second in the ARCA race. Finishes second here tonight in the Cup side of things. And Francisco Bacallao, you're caught up with the driver of the 13.
Well, Craig, it was a lot of P2 for most of the night, and just when you got the number on the 99 of Forrester, we saw Kyle Benson perform that strategy and get ahead of everybody, and you were forced to run behind his teammate there who was doing a stellar job defending. What did you think you had to do to try and win that race?
I guess probably pit a lap earlier and, I don't know, get a little luckier, honestly. I really felt like luck just wasn't on my side in that last pit stop. I'm looking at the replay now, and it looks like the lines in the track are incorrect for Darlington. I got it too far forward in the pits, and it clearly shows me in the rear part of the box. So I don't know what the deal is there. I mean, I corrected very quickly, only lost like 1 or 2 seconds, but to come out of the pits 1 or 2 seconds later, that's probably the difference between a win or at least competing for the win.
Yeah, we saw those green flag pit stops made a big difference. And of course, Darlington has one of the most difficult pit road entries. You think that maybe somewhere along that pit entry that you could have done something different in order to gain some more time?
No, I took the preferred entry, which is to leave it on the track until almost the yellow line and then cut it down. Could have possibly gotten it a little quicker, but with the how torn up the tires are on this track after 40 or so laps, I think I did about as good as I could do. Maybe I could have gotten a little quicker, but it was just, I think, just where I showed up off the pit road. I don't even think that the gap necessarily is what did me in.
We also saw that you were around playoff drivers for most of the night. And as a driver who's not in the playoffs, Craig, how was it like trying to keep the balance between racing these guys for the position, but also keeping the respect that they are racing for something much greater?
I mean, I definitely was trying to be safe around them, but for me, this is my best track. I was not going to be letting up at all in this race. I mean, I obviously wanted to keep it safe and not wreck anyone, but I mean, I'll be probably a little bit more lenient toward playoff drivers going forward. But this race, it was all out, balls to the wall. I felt like me in the 99, the 11 had one of the great battles of the season. Unfortunately, it didn't put any of us in P1. So it sucks when just things go that way.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that things didn't go your way, Craig, but it was still a stellar night from you to be able to run in the top two for most of the evening. A lot of people, a lot of sponsors, a lot of things went into this with that Sitco throwback. Just who exactly went into making this whole thing possible?
I guess just owner of the league, Tyler Murray. I guess I'm just lucky to be running Darlington this year or this season because it got canceled early in the season because of week 13 iRacing shenanigans. But I don't know, both a blessing in disguise and not a blessing in disguise because of last week's season I didn't make the playoffs. But yeah, just Tyler Murray and anyone who comes out to race. You want to race around good people, and that's what I saw a lot this last 40 or so laps, even though it didn't wind up a P1.
It was still a solid night from you, Craig, and Texas is next week. We hope to see you there. We hope to see you try and contend for the win there, as that's, of course, what you're going to be racing for the next couple of weeks. We wish you luck once again, and congratulations on the strong P2.
Thanks.
It's Colin Forrester, or Craig Launslager, rather, who comes in P2. Colin Forrester is next on the board. The driver comes in third. He's in the middle of the non-playoff, or the playoff sandwich, really, as Craig Launslager comes home in second and does get a great result from that Sitco Toyota Camry. Here's Colin Forrester for Sonic Motorsports. We bring him in from pit road, who finishes just inside the top three. And Colin, looked like that race was yours from drop the green flag, really, after Brian Smith's disconnection to that final pit stop. Give us your perspective on what happened there in the final segment.
It was definitely the pit strategy. I just hit it a little wrong. Just really wasn't expecting them to pit that early because we still had like 9 laps of fuel left. But it just came down to a pit strategy. Honestly, I did way better than I was expecting. The last time me and AJ ran here, he was actually a lot faster than me, especially on the long run. So I'm satisfied with third place, even though I feel like I could have got a win. But it's all right though. Third place, still got a pretty good points lead to the cut line, and we should be good. Texas is one of my better tracks, surprisingly, even though I hate the layout. The new layout. I like old Texas. It's pretty fun. But definitely I'm satisfied with the third place. It's okay.
Of course, talk about that final pit stop and then the route all the way to the end. You were caught behind Craig Launslager and Austin Reedy before Reedy had a mistake and he hit the outside wall. So how difficult was it, coupled with passing here, to try and get back up to the leader? Because you guys were closing in, but as soon as the traffic started to build up, it got tougher for you. Give us your perspective on how that was and how difficult it was to make passes.
Man, definitely super hard to pass at this track, as it is even in real life, as you see. Just outside's preferred in 3 and 4, so if you try and throw it off on the inside, you hope you don't slide up into him. I know me and Craig got super close there one time. I thought I was going to hit him. And just 1 and 2, you cannot go side by side in there. You'll lose way too much time if you try to. And it'll probably honestly end up in a wreck. We've seen Craig and Reedy go side by side in there, and I had to slam on the brakes because Craig wasn't going to make the corner, and he was going to run the 11 into the wall. But it was a really fun battle there at the end with me, the 11, and Craig there. It sucks it wasn't for the win. great job to Kyle for the pit strategy. That time I stole Rockingham from him was pit strategy, and he stole this race from me and Craig on pit strategies. But yeah, just a fun race overall between everyone in this league.
Well, it's definitely not a win from Darlington, but like you said, it's going to be a lot of points. It's going to hold you up atop the championship 5. So at least there is some good news coming out of this race. But before we let you go, Colin, is there anybody you just want to thank for making this possible? Any teams, sponsors, or just anybody else who just want to give the love and shout outs to for tonight?
Shout out to everyone on Stonks Motorsports. Really wasn't a great race for us. AJ and Adam kind of struggled the whole race. They were top 10, not really top 5 cars all night. Like I said, I'm surprised AJ didn't do as good. But also shout out to everyone in the league for having me. Look forward to this race every Wednesday night. And shout out to you for doing the broadcast, or you guys for doing the broadcast. I'm sure I'll go watch that tomorrow. And just like I said, shout out to everyone in the league for having me.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time, Colin. I want to congratulate you on the 3rd place finish here tonight from Darlington. And of course, wishing you the best of luck in both the ARCA Series and the Cup Series at the Texas Motor Speedway next week.
All right, thank you very much, guys.
Colin Forrester rounds out the top 3 90 laps led here tonight in the 99 Camping World Camaro. He caps off our round of the driver interviews as we'll step it back up to the booth where alongside Francisco Bacchial, I'm Kenneth Bueno. And this was a calm race from Darlington. I mean, a shorter field, a longer stretched race, 147 laps. I mean, we didn't know what to expect if this was in the regular season, but in the context of the playoffs, definitely showed us a dynamic race and one that ended up on a great strategy to call the finish.
Yeah, I mean, and Darlington's a track that it could be very difficult for guys to get around. So I think this was a good example of sometimes you can trade the quantity for quality. And we had a really good race here tonight. We had the strategy play out. We had Colin Forster was very dominant, but not exactly gone from the field, if you will. And we saw an example of that because pit strategy played a big role in that. Somebody was able to do something different, and it worked out to a really good benefit. And the strategy that Forrester was on didn't exactly help him either. So we saw Benson able to come here, take his first win of the season, and that's really what he needs, Kenneth. We talked about it all season, how he has not had the performance that we saw him have last season. And much like Denny Hamlin, he comes in here in the first race of the playoffs, and he comes in and takes the win. And that's exactly what Denny Hamlin did, and he would end up making the championship 4. Of course, Benson's already locked into the championship 5 because it is the one round, but regardless, it could set him off on a little bit of a hot streak here to close the season, as you call, peaking at the right time. And this could be an example of that. We've seen Benson do it before. He won a race in the playoffs last season as well, so 2 of his 3 career wins have come in the playoffs. And who's to know what we'll see from him? Texas, of course, is next week, and we'll be at the Legacy Texas Speedway for the ARCA Series, but at the new Texas with the different banking on both ends of the racetrack next Wednesday night for some Cup action. And I don't know, Kenneth, I don't know yet for sure, but maybe you'll see that number 30 out on the racetrack.
Ooh, maybe some eye emojis on that? Who knows?
I don't know, maybe some Red Bull.
Nonetheless, a great race here tonight from Darlington, and what it's going to do, I figure, is going to shake up the playoff grid a bit coming out of this race, going into Texas. Of course, this is the point standings you're looking at on your screen. This is going into tonight, so this is not accounting for Kyle Benson's win in this race or where everybody finished in retrospect. This is where we started. We're going to be at a completely different level coming in next week at Texas, but Forster came into this race the points leader. Now, you're going to see the 5th place car, Kyle Benson, the 5th place name in Benson, go to the top. He's going to be locked in with a win. And that's going to shake up a lot of drivers in the points, considering the fact that some playoff drivers didn't have the greatest of nights. They struggled a bit here tonight from Darlington. Going to have to pick things up. And drivers who have done well, much like Colin Forster did, who finished 3rd, he's going to have to continue that momentum and maybe get a win of himself to lock into the Championship 5 as we close in closer to the Atlanta Motor Speedway. But of course, we've got more racing in the coming weeks. Next week, we'll follow the Texas Motor Speedway. It'll be our first trip to the Lone Star State, December 8th, 2021. We'll have the coverage here on MaxSpeedTV, 9:10 p.m. Eastern. Same time, same channel. We'll go to the Nashville Super Speedway the week after. That's going to be a debut track for the series as well. We'll close out the Championship 5 at the Talladega Super Speedway in Alabama. And then, of course, just before the new year comes around, 2022, we'll say Happy New Year with a potential new champion in the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series and it's going to be a great one all the way to the end. And of course, the ARCA series, you'll find that on the K1 Racing Network. They're going to follow a similar schedule. They're also going to end their season at the Atlanta Motor Speedway in Hampton, Georgia. But that concludes our broadcast of the first race of the 4Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs from the Darlington Raceway. I want to give a congratulations to Kyle Benson, first win on the season, as he takes his ticket to the Championship 5 directly on a short pitch strategy that shocks all. So on behalf of Tyler Murray, league owner, and everybody as a part of the race council for making all of this happen, and on behalf of all of us at MaxSpeedTV, and for my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying so long, good night from the Lady in Black. We'll see you next week in the wild, wild west at the Texas Motor Speedway.